Hi guys, let's go watching. Just before that, subscribe and enjoy yourself. The protagonist, reading her favorite romantic comedy, The Time Trap, is deeply shocked by what she sees as an illogical choice of the novel's heroine. She chose one man, Lenin's, over the protagonist, Ertine, who impresses her. She also doesn't understand why the author added the tag character correction if the novel is not about the hero's repentance. In a world of romance dominated by gentle men who devote themselves entirely to girls, The Time Trap is a romantic comedy featuring hot male characters. That's what the main character says. She voices her point of view, which claims that the male characters make mistakes that lead to misunderstandings, tangled love triangles, and other unexpected plot twists, followed by a regret-filled climax that ends with the protagonist miscarrying. The scene where a girl who has lost her child demands a divorce in bed, and her husband falls to his knees in front of her as if he will never see her again, impressed our protagonist so much that she hasn't missed a single sequel. However, she still cannot understand the protagonist's choice of a husband, even resents her, because she was sure of her opposite decision until the end. The girl realizes that this situation could not have affected her alone, so she went to the comment section under the book and, seeing the responses of like-minded people, wrote a dozen comments. It made her tired. After a while, the protagonist sees that there is an update under the last chapter, a comment from the author, in which she notes that she has decided to create an alternative ending to the novel, in which the heroine chooses Ertine over Lenin's. Although it will take some time. This news reassured her that she had not spent the money in vain and that it seemed to have paid off. It also made her realize how powerful fans are. Immediately after that, there was another news from the author of the novel, in which she assures us that she wants to make a gift to one of those readers who are impressed by Ertine. This even more pleasant news removed the residue of the unpleasant ending from our main character, and she went to bed in a great mood. The next morning, she woke up with a strange feeling. There was a stranger lying next to her, whom she initially took for a robber or even a bandit. But the guy was sleeping peacefully. This suggested that he was not a robber or a bandit. He was incredibly handsome, perfect facial features. The guy looked like he stepped off the pages of a fashion magazine. None of this was as important as what was happening at all. A different room, a different hair color, a different protagonist. Before she knew it, the same guy who was sleeping next to her woke up. He was surprised to see the girl up so early, especially after last night when they were together. Since they were both awake, the handsome stranger, who was still unsuspecting, suggested that they repeat the adventures of the previous night, believing that his companion would not mind either. Still not understanding anything, the girl heard a voice that reminded her of the words of the author of the novel about a special gift for Ertine's admirer. It seems that it was not a dream, and she really became the main character of the novel, Cornea. Cornea's story, or simply Kona, was not the easiest. The girl was an orphan. Usually, such stories of pretty girls rarely end well, but Kona was lucky. She was born with a weak magical gift. She was able to live a good life. Through her part-time job, Kona went to a masquerade, where she came on behalf of an aristocratic lady with whom she had become close. She was quiet and tried to run away, but she had to overcome herself and drink alcohol to get rid of the persistent attention of the man who was bothering her. Alcohol mixed with an aphrodisiac could be very dangerous. The scoundrel sneers and tries to kidnap Cornea. At this point, an unknown man drinks the rest of the alcohol, thus driving the bastard away. This man is the same bookish favorite of our protagonist, Ertine, who ranks first in popularity in The Time Trap. Ertine lays Kona, who is breathing heavily, on the bed in the empty room. Leaving the girl alone, he is about to leave, but the effect of the aphrodisiac begins to work on him. They both felt an overwhelming desire. From time to time, a spark seemed to pass between them. In the end, they were going to have a very hot night. Now our main character is in the middle of the action. In the original story, Kona was supposed to wake up first and run away. The new Kona, who is a real-life reader with experience, had a feeling that she had to follow the plot of the original. But in her opinion, everything had already been spoiled. She was sure that she couldn't go too far, otherwise there would be no turning back, and she would ruin everything if she changed her mind. The guy continued his caresses. He whispered pleasant, exciting words, kissed her, and promised to improve her mood. Although the new Kona tried to say that she was not the one he had actually spent the night with, she was still pleased with the intimacy. Trying to resist the temptation and the memories from her reading that testified to Ertain's good skills, the protagonist tried to recall anything, even the anthem of a country, to get rid of the annoying memories. However, the girl thought that changing the plot now would not change it as a whole. Even when Kona ran away in the original, Ertain found her and brought her back to the estate. That is, to follow the plot and come back to the beginning. The difference of a few days may be noticeable only to those who are familiar with the original. While the new Kona was thinking, Ertain began to count to 10, emphasizing that if she did not make a choice during this time, he would take her silence as mute consent. And she made that choice, which satisfied both of them. As a result, Ertain fulfilled his promise, and the girl's mood really lifted despite the circumstances. It was a great time spent together. The boy got up and went to wash his face, saying that he and Kona would have to talk after he returned. Now that her mind was not clouded by anything or anyone, she was convinced that she had to run. At first, she thought that the original story didn't concern her, but now she realized that it did. Even now, it's not too late. According to the girl, the Duke will not be able to torture Kona because it will turn into an abyss filled with evil. And the present her would not be able to survive in this hell-like world if she did not have someone on her side. So she left, slowly getting used to Kona's body. The sun was almost at its zenith, and although the memories of the real Kona had disappeared almost without a trace, the girl could remember where she lived and returned to some extent. She made it home without incident. She fell onto a hard bed and thought about what she should do and what was up to her in this situation. It seems that the reason why the author moved our protagonist into Kona's body is that she has to change the ending of the time trap, to make it a proper novel in which a person truly repents. The girl perceives this as a noble revelation from above. She was sure that no matter what the author's intentions were for the plot, the new Kona would do everything in her own way to be with Ertain in the end, because the writer had to predict the reader's behavior. From that moment on, a plan emerged for the girl to follow. In fact, Kona was disliked by Ertain's family because he had a childhood friend, Rebecca, with whom he had discussed an engagement. Later, it would turn out that his family were real scum, and the friend he trusted turned out to be no better. All the thoughts and analysis of the original story led the girl to believe that she was pregnant. Although the real Kona didn't get pregnant after the ball, she ran away before Ertain woke up and didn't stay like our heroine. There was little chance of pregnancy, as Ertain is infertile. Even after one more time, the chances of conceiving a child were too small. The heroine was thinking about future actions that could significantly undermine Ertain's trust in Rebecca when she suddenly heard a knock at the door. Surprised, she went over to open it. An unknown man bursts in, leaving the main character with a lot of questions about what's going on. The man attacked the girl with questions about the month's rent, which she was supposed to pay yesterday. And then she remembered him. It was Jeffrey, one of the Sultan's collectors, who runs the street and always pushes Kona around. One of the reasons Kona ran away the morning after the ball was a bribe. Jeffrey grabbed the girl by the collar and asked her if she was ready to finally become his. Suddenly, the man stumbled when he saw something on the girl's neck. It turned out to be a small bruise from a kiss. This made Jeffrey very angry, and he raised his hand to hit Kona. Another unknown hand grabbed the wrist of the enraged man, thus stopping him. It turned out to be Ertain, who found Cornea faster than the cannon. But, he said, it took him longer than he expected. Ertain quickly dealt with Jeffrey. As it turned out, Ertain came to take Cornea with him. He was upset that she had run away from him, making him think that he was so disgusting to her. However, it didn't matter. He still intended to take her away. Ertain was worried that Kona might be pregnant by him because they hadn't protected themselves. He said that his blood was priceless, so from that moment on, Cornea was his. Even though Kona had been at Velceda's estate before, these actions are in line with the canon. Kona was worried about her plan and whether she should be prepared for the events that would happen at the beginning, because her plan was written before Ertain's arrival. The maid came into the room and said that Ertain was waiting for Cornea for dinner. Kona agreed, and this agreement was the beginning of her plan to change the ending of the time trap. The maid took Kona to the living room. She noticed how quiet the mansion was. However, when she entered the room, she was struck by its beauty and elegance. Ertain followed her into the room, striking with his beauty and the clothes he chose that emphasized his muscles so well. The guy said that they could eat separately if it bothered Kona, but she assured him that it was fine. The heroine said the phrase according to the canon, asking when exactly she would be able to return home, to which the guy replied that it all depends on her and her possible position. Ertain went to his room, telling Coney that until her private room was ready, she would live with him. This event was not in the original. Even though Kona decided to deviate from the canon, she hasn't started doing anything according to plan. It was also not according to the canon that Ertain told the girl his name, which he was supposed to give her a day later. Kona began to reassure herself that this should not interfere with the development of the plot, no matter where she slept. Kona knew that Ertain would announce in front of Welsita's people that he would marry her. After that, the petty people behind Rebecca would start their bullying. She also knows that these scoundrels have a plan to ruin everything. They ended up in a room where Kona asked if they should be together. She didn't mean just sleeping, but doing what she said were the wrong things. The guy took her words as if their time together was something she didn't want. He wouldn't mind repeating all those things with her in moments of intimacy, but he's not a scumbag to do it without consent. Ertain told the girl that she had a maid assigned to her to help her take a bath and just be there when she needed something. Kona began to refuse, saying that she was not going to run away anyway, so she did not need supervision. The boy offered to take a bath together. She refused, not wanting to be tempted. Ertain told the maids that Kona wanted to take a bath. Finally, he told the girl that if she changed her mind, he wouldn't mind joining her. This phrase sounds so romantic only when he says it. Kona's goal was to solve one problem that could currently prevent her from having a good honeymoon with her beloved. After the procedures, Kona went to rest on Ertain's big bed, where he so often fell asleep alone. Although you wouldn't say he sleeps much, he has enough to do. Ertain Velsita is an honorary commander of the Imperial Knights, a swordsman who goes above and beyond his diligence in his work. This is a man who doesn't have 24 hours in a day. Our heroine was just crazy about this guy. She was crazy about his ability to treat girls right, his mannerisms, and his beautiful muscular arms. To make tomorrow come sooner, Kona decided to go to bed. In the morning, she noticed that Ertain had not even gone to bed, but he had assured her that he had a lot of work to do. She was upset because she thought he would be sleeping next to her. Today, according to the canon, Ertain must tell his family that he will marry her. She has to be ready for it. Later, the maids came to the room. Their task was to get Kona ready, to dress her up and dress her, and to choose the outfit so that the mark on her neck would not be visible. When Ertain saw the girl after all these manipulations, he was struck by her beauty, but he couldn't help but say how sorry he was that his fingerprint was not visible on her. This made the girl blush. Later, Ertain changed his clothes as well. He looked stunning, and now Kona was impressed. She wished she could express her admiration openly. They were already waiting for them. The boy asked Kona not to listen to what the others would say, because he would have the last word anyway. Before the event began, Ertain announced the news that Kona would become his wife. The room was abuzz. Everyone was outraged, reminding him that the union was supposed to be with Rebecca of the Milax family, and this girl was just a commoner and not even of noble blood. These conversations and reproaches made Ertain angry, and he stood up for Cornea, shutting up the one who talked the most. According to the canon, Cornea was the first girl the boy brought. This event would have caused a stir of emotions in any case. Relvond Velsita, Ertain's father, took up the floor and said that such statements about his son could not offend him. However, he agreed that others could be understood, as everyone had thought that the young man would marry Rebecca Milax, and why he chose another woman was a mystery. Ertain answered this question directly. They just spent the night together, and now he assumes that the girl might be pregnant by him, which is why they decided to get married. Even when reading this scene for the first time, the protagonist already perceived Ertain as a psycho. Living through this event live, the word psycho is too mild a definition. The girl has already caught dismissive glances, and Ertain hasn't even proposed yet. Ertain's father asked his son not to rush into marriage until the pregnancy was confirmed, as there was a chance that he might regret it. The boy assured him that if the girl was carrying his child, she should become part of their family, and time would tell. One of the guards interrupted the family council, saying that he had received a call from the imperial palace. In the novel, Ertain hesitated for a moment and then said he would return soon. After all, having introduced Cornea to the family, he believed that the most important part of the job was done. It was very sensitive of him. He must have felt Kona's despair as she sat alone in the meeting room. No one could have imagined that the situation would turn out this way. Kona would have been happy to leave with Ertain, taking his hand, but this did not happen. She continued to sit in her seat, surrounded by relatives of her future groom. One of the attendees suggested that the topic of Kona be brought up for discussion, claiming that they had been told too little about the family's new girlfriend. The idea was supported almost unanimously. At this point, according to the story, the orphan Kona could not object to the insults disguised as questions. She was indirectly called a commoner, a deceiver, a fool, and asked tactless questions. However, now these people are not facing the canonical Cornea who cannot respond to insults. Now this girl did not remain silent, but assured that it was with Mr. Ertain that she spent the night for the first time. And the result of a possible pregnancy can be shown by a magic test in a month. Kona assured him that she would agree to take the test now, and if she was really pregnant by another man, the test should show it. If so, she was ready to get down on her knees and take the punishment. If nothing is confirmed, the lady who said it should apologize for her words. The lady was furious at this insolence, not understanding why she should apologize. Kona assured her that she had insulted not only her but also Ertain, calling him reckless. These words frightened the lady so much that she began to make excuses for what she had meant. Kona said that if the lady had something to say, she should say it in front of Mr. Ertain, because she had insulted not her, an ordinary commoner, but the head of the family, so she should answer to him. After putting one of her offenders in his place, she asked the others if anyone else wanted to speak, because it seemed they had a lot of questions for Cornea. Everyone was silent. Mr. Relvon, who had been observing the situation, suggested that the discussion of this topic should be closed, and everyone agreed. Before she left, Cornea reminded her, confusing the lady again, that she would be waiting for the magic examination. Kona and the maids entered Ertain's dressing room. The girl was sure that after all this, the aristocrat's attacks would be even harsher, but she was still proud of her debut. Cornea decided to treat herself to sweets and a few books with a hot plot. She will definitely read these books, but her main gift for herself is the book Theories of Building a Magic Circle. However, the question arose whether the girl should become a wizard. Putting the magic book aside for later, the girl took up a novel about knights and princesses. Kona was so caught up in the whirlwind of events in the book that she didn't notice Ertain enter the room and wonder what she was reading. The guy had no idea that Kona was interested in such stories. He asked her if she wanted to do what she was reading about. Of course she wanted to, but she stopped herself by assuring herself that they couldn't until this happened. Getting off topic, Cornea asked if the boy had finished his business with the imperial palace, to which he replied with an ambiguous yes. This made the girl laugh because she knew exactly why he had been summoned. The next question was about the family meeting and how it went. This question should be asked of all those sitting in the room. It would be surprising if either party had a good impression of the conversation, because their worlds are quite different. Ertain said that Coney should meet the people she would be crossing paths with in the future. But she refused, not wanting to meet them all after what had happened. It was a canonical event. In the original, Ertain said the same words, but then Kona replied that she didn't want to see them, barely holding back her tears. This time it was not the case. Confused by Cornea's words, Ertain contacted a man who had attended the meeting to better understand what had happened. The man replied that most likely Coney was uncomfortable in a new place, with new people. After all, it was not often that a girl without a family, who grew up in the common people, had to meet aristocrats. He also assured Ertain that he would take care of her comfort next time. Ertain believes these lies and lets the incident go. However, Kona is not happy that she cannot control the situation and does not like it at all. Cornea asked if there was any point in getting to know Velceda's family, because if it turned out that she was not pregnant in a month, she would have no reason to stay. So she assured him that there was no need to meet them until then. Ertain remained silent. She also said that she would take a pregnancy test in a week. Ertain asked her what kind of nonsense she was talking about, because she had assured him that a month had to pass. Kona said she had to undergo a test to see if Ertain was the father of the child. The guy was seriously tense and seemed to get angry when he asked if she could really be pregnant by another man, because he was sure that he was her first. Cornea assured him that no matter what the truth is, there are people who will still be calm only when they get the truth. Ertain was furious, his fingers clenched into a fist, and his cheekbones were flushed. He asked who had dared to say such a thing to her. The girl thought it would be funny to name everyone, but if Mr. Ertain had already begun to dig into the problem, her words could have unpleasant consequences. So she decided that not this time. Kona said that she did not remember the names or faces of the people, but since they asked for a pregnancy test, Ertain would be able to find out who they were in a few days. The guy assured her that there was no need for a background check. He also swore that she would never see the person who had offended her again. Kona couldn't wait for it to be over. It was Ertain who hurt Cornea with his rational thinking, and his behavior showed his true self. And yet, she enjoyed making the hero change. Finally, Mr. Ertain said that there are things he would like to discuss, but now he has to resolve the issue with the aristocrats. Therefore, they will be able to discuss the things mentioned in Kona's book tomorrow. Tomorrow, they will also be able to spend some time together outside the house, but for today, Kona can relax at her leisure while Ertain takes care of business. Kona's ear was burning from Ertain's whisper. She was surprised at how easily he could turn even innocent hints into erotic ones. Now that erotic books had satisfied Kona's needs, she decided to take up the theory of magic. Corinna has magical abilities, even if their number is a bit higher than that of an ordinary person. She needs to know how to use the crumbs of her talent effectively. The problem was that Coney needed to use her skills wisely, because she was not absorbing the information very well. Even though our protagonist found herself in Kona's body and gained memories, she did not manage to gain all the knowledge that the novel's heroine had. Mainly, she lacked memories related to magic. The last time Coney met Jeffrey, she managed to remember his name, though not immediately. Most likely, this meant that her memory was returning gradually, perhaps when she was in familiar situations. Kona believed that she would be able to remember how to use magic when she started to learn something about it and study it. The only question left was what to do with it all. The book was very complicated, especially when reading it for the first time. It might seem that it was written in another, incomprehensible language. But Kona could not give up so easily. She read again and again, trying to understand at least something written in the book, but she failed. In the end, she gave up and decided that the theory of magic was not for her. The girl wondered if she could awaken her memories by reading something she didn't know, but she failed. Kona was tired and came to the conclusion that in order to overcome the heights of magic, she had to start with something simpler. And she began to remember what other similar books were mentioned in the time trap. And then she fell asleep. Through her dream, Kona heard a voice trying to wake her up. After this unknown being succeeded, he greeted her as the chosen reader and said that it was time for the first gift. The girl was seriously frightened. It turns out that this little creature is the voice that reminded the girl of the author's words when she first woke up in this world of the novel. He was worried about how the girl would adapt to this world, so he wrote notes. She, in turn, barely calmed down enough to avoid throwing a pillow at him. The next question that worried the girl was where they were, because everything around them was strange. It was the space inside her dream. A small creature told the heroine that it would help her enjoy life in the time trap. Several special gifts were prepared for the special guest. The girl was very interested in them. The little creature extended its index finger to the heroine, expecting her to do the same. They were supposed to touch fingers like in the movie E.T. 2 days ago, when she came into this world, she had the same sensations as she does now. It was as if ink was drawing letters in her head one drop at a time and gradually filling it with words. The creature said that it would help the girl to take over all of Cornea's memories. Of course, not all at once, because receiving a special gift consists of several stages. The first gift is Kona's knowledge of magic. Since this is only the first part, the girl was advised to accept these feelings to begin with. From the next time on, the heroine will have to pay the appropriate price for each gift. The girl was very inspired by the first gift. She was happy that she would finally be able to use magic. So she was ready to receive the gift as soon as possible. The creature said that in order to awaken their memories, they had to start learning. This was obviously not what the girl expected. She was sure that the elf would just download all the knowledge into her head and she wouldn't have to bother with learning. The gift had already been accepted and it was impossible to refuse it. So they began their studies. The first topic and, accordingly, section was the theory of magic formulas, which was very difficult. According to the elf, the ratio of time between the real world and the dream world is 1:60, meaning that 1 hour in a dream is equal to a minute in real time. So if a girl sleeps for 8 hours, she will spend 20 days in a dream. She is stuck in this world for 20 days. Even in her sleep, the heroine could not rest. She just taught and taught, drawing each character without a break. The small, seemingly kind elf turned out to be a strict teacher who simply did not understand how easy formulas were so difficult to memorize. Wuhan reminded the girl that her time with him depends on how much she sleeps. That is, there is a chance to get stuck for a long time learning new magic terms and formulas. It took 30 sleepy days for all the basic theoretical material to be absorbed. It made her very tired, and she no longer considered it a gift because it was the result of her hard work. The elf said that the next gift would have to wait for 5 days, and that's when he and the girl would be able to see each other again, but for now they were saying goodbye. After that, Kona woke up. The girl woke up in a cold sweat, breathing heavily. It had been a really hard dream. Next to the bed was Ertain, who thought Coney was having a nightmare, looking at her condition. He hugged the girl, began to calm her down, and said that if he had been there, she would not have had nightmares. Kona, surprisingly, felt so calm, as if she were being hugged and reassured by an old friend. And he was just a man she had met a few days ago. Even though these were just mechanical words from a man who had upset Kona, she felt incredibly comfortable in his arms at that moment. Kona blamed the little elf for everything, calling him an evil elf who was smeared with wasabi. Cornea was convinced that Ertain was still that calculating turkey whose words and hugs only calmed him down when he was overworked in his sleep. It turned out that while she was sleeping, Ertain had called a doctor to see her, who told her that her sleep lasted so long and was deep because of physical and emotional fatigue. Ertain asked how she was feeling and suggested calling the doctor again, but Kona assured him that everything was fine, especially in his arms. The boy assumed that it was not easy for the girl to be in the mansion and that he should have been more careful, but he did not think about it. Kona was surprised to hear such frankness, especially from him. By the way, Ertain reported that Brienne, the girl who had insulted Kona, had been expelled from the Welsit family. This news was welcome. The news didn't end there. The guy also said that Kona has a special place in Welsit, and perhaps he will be able to show it to him tonight. In fact, the news confused the girl because this was not in the canon, and such surprises are not in Ertain's character, so she felt a trick. That's why she decided to find out what this special place was anyway. After convincing Ertain that she was still uneasy about yesterday's incident, it was good to hear something good and for the boy to give her a little hint. Under this pressure, Ertain gave in and said that in the evening there would be an official dinner, a so-called meeting, where the elders of the family would be present. All of them, he said, regretted what happened yesterday and wanted to apologize. It was as if Kona knew there would be a catch to this surprise, and so it was. She was convinced that no one was sorry for anything, and that they were just going to find out what her weaknesses were at the dinner. Dinner with older family members was mentioned in the original without much detail, so the heroine was wondering if something would go wrong as in the canon. Kona pretended to be very excited about the news and lied about how she was already looking forward to meeting her family. This reaction amused Ertain, but he asked her not to tell anyone that she already knew about the dinner. Looking at the situation from the other side, the The girl really didn't mind the dinner, because if things went wrong again, she could easily show what she was really capable of. Noticing that Cornea's mood had improved, Ertain decided to bring up the topic of the books she had read yesterday. He asked her if she liked to do that outside of the house. The guy offered to do it right now because he was quite excited, so he asked if the girl was ready for it. She wanted to forget about everything and just enjoy their time together. But she thought that it was very dangerous, because if something other than the changed original happened, there was a chance of facing deadly problems. So she decided to wait until a safer time. Ertain left. He said that he understood, because not so long ago she wanted to run away from him, so he was probably asking too much of her now. He advised her to get some rest before leaving. This situation pissed Kona off, because the guy was so hot and begging for it that she might not be able to resist. So now she decided to kill him well at tonight's dinner. To relax, Kona decided to read a book she had been fascinated by before. However, she remembered the book Theories of Magic Circle Building and decided to check the result of her lessons with the magical green elf. To her surprise, Kona understood everything written in the book, which meant that her suffering and hard work had not gone unnoticed. The memories of her real Kona about magic returned to the heroine, memories in which Cornea, abandoned by her parents, clung to a barely noticeable thread of her talent, practicing and experimenting incessantly. It turns out that the real Cornea had a very hard time. Our heroine was sure that this part was not written in the novel, and if it was, she did not pay attention to it, and now these are her memories. It was a strange experience, but not a bad one. The heroine put her hand on her chest and covered her eyes for a moment, thus paying tribute to the real Cornea. So now the girl can use magic. She decided to concentrate the magic inside her body and those crumbs of it that she didn't even know she had obey her will. Cornea's magical abilities are initially small, and therefore she could not use magic in a way that would have a noticeable effect. Therefore, in order for the heroine to be able to fully cast magic, using something like magic circles and potions, she needs to be prepared for it. The magic that Kona can use is quite good. Now the heroine can lift heavy books with her fingers, the magic of body strengthening. It was just a weak magical ability that made her fingers stronger, but even though she could only use the gift in everyday life, its help already made her happy. It's time to prepare for a formal dinner, and the heroine decides to remember how it went in the original story. They met with Ertain, who looked surprisingly gorgeous, although the girl herself was not inferior. The boy extended his hand to her, and Kona was ready to meet those forces of evil. In the hall, 5 familiar faces were waiting for them. One of them was Ertain's father, Relvond, the other 4 of whom Kona had seen at the meeting but did not know their names. Among them all, there was a woman, the only one who hadn't raised her hand during yesterday's discussion. Sitting down at the table, Ertain asked if another guest, Mr. Larnak, would be coming, and was told that he had some urgent business. Then the guy said that he just had to wait for Miss Elgina, and everyone would be there. However, her presence was also in question. Mr. Relvon took the floor, he and Cornea introduced themselves to each other, and the man announced that they had all gathered to apologize for yesterday's incident. Other men sitting at the table also began to say how sorry they were that they could not intervene in the fight between the 2 young ladies who were having a heated conversation. One of the aristocrats said that the conversation was so fierce that offenses and misunderstandings would have arisen anyway, and suggested that they be resolved on the spot. This impressed Kona, so she asked what exactly they meant by a misunderstanding. In fact, Cornea memorized everyone's words. She had remained silent while enduring the attacks of these nobles, so she truly did not understand how they could think it was a misunderstanding. She could not believe that she looked stupid enough to believe this nonsense. Unfortunately, the right time has not yet come for such a triumph. Only 3 days have passed since the heroine was imprisoned in the castle, and she hasn't found anyone she can trust. Even Ertain could turn his back on her at any moment. Cornea decided to proceed cautiously, agreeing that the incident at the meeting was indeed a misunderstanding. She assured me that she felt grateful. These words caused great surprise among all those present. Kona asked if they had witnessed the insults that he and Mr. Ertain had received at the meeting, and of course the men answered in the affirmative. The aristocrats noted Cornea's correctness and expressed their understanding of why the head of the family liked her. All this showmanship was very annoying for Cornea, but she convinced herself that she was just taking one step back before taking 2 steps forward. Before they get rid of Cornelia, the elders will pretend to be sorry, so she has to show them how she feels about them. A little later, appetizers were brought to the table. This became another reason for veiled mockery and outright abuse because of Kona's imperfect knowledge of table etiquette. Still, because these aristocrats now consider their instructions appropriate, things are not as bad as in the original time trap. Back then, the real Cornea was very worried about the criticism that did not stop. She ended up throwing up in the bathroom because of the food she had barely touched. The inattentive Ertain didn't even realize that Cornea was being humiliated. All he said was that he would appoint an etiquette teacher for her. That was all the support he could give. One of the elders, who seemed to be waiting for a turning point, promised to provide an etiquette teacher, and the real Coney had to deal with that pervert. It was hard to listen to all this even now, knowing the plot, and how difficult it must have been for the real Coney to listen to all this. History was repeating itself. One of the elders actually advised the girl to ask for an etiquette teacher, which caused her to drop her fork out of excitement, or on purpose. The embarrassed girl asked Ertain what she should do, as she was still recovering from yesterday's shock. Cornea asked Ertain to cut the food for her. This request surprised everyone present and outraged some of them. However, the boy easily fulfilled the girl's will. He asked if there was anything else he could do to help Coney, and she replied that she still didn't know how to use a fork and would be very happy if Mr. Ertain could show her what to do. Ertain moved the chair closer to the girl and began to demonstrate the correct position of the fork in her hand. To demonstrate how she understood it, Kona decided to feed the boy a little. He was surprised by this, but rather in a pleasant way. Kona did apologize to Ertain because, in her opinion, she had not performed well enough at the meeting with the elders. He replied that she would learn with time and that even the elders should take it with a smile. The girl relied on these words and asked to just eat, because she could not enjoy her dinner enough because of the constant remarks. Ertain stood up and told her that he would be Cornelia's etiquette teacher. The girl was pleased because another situation had been successfully resolved. The girl had dealt with the biggest problem, but there was still something left. The only person who did not cause problems and even remained silent at dinner, according to Cornea's guess, was Anela Velsita, Ertain's maternal aunt. If we recall the original story, she was supposed to talk to Kona right after dinner, but now everything was different, and the heroine was drowning in thoughts about how the situation with her aunt would probably turn out now, because she hadn't really thought about her. Kona's thoughts were interrupted by Ertain, who greeted the new guest and called her aunt. It seems that the girl was wrong in her guess. The woman who came in said not to call her aunt, because she was not even from the family of Velsita. The woman was not happy that Ertain wanted to marry this girl, and she had heard that she was a commoner. The aunt was convinced that the marriage was unacceptable. The woman openly expressed her attitude to marriage right in front of Ertain, which shocked the protagonist because few people would do that, because everyone is afraid of this guy. But not his aunt. She seemed like an iron woman to Kanya. Ertain's aunt was very strict. She believed that the boy wanted to ruin his family with such a statement. The woman assured him that the marriage of the head of the dynasty was an important event not only for him. She accused Ertain of irresponsibility. At the time, Cornea was only surprised that there were people in the Duke's entourage who could speak so directly and to his face. She believed that they were all just puppets in the hands of the evil Rebecca. Ertain replied to his aunt's remark that his decision was more than conscious, and the latter asked with undisguised irritation if he really thought he had considered everything when he brought a girl he had met 3 days earlier to be the mistress of the house. Mr. Relvond entered the conversation, addressing his aunt, whose name was Elgina. He told her to watch her words, because they had decided all these issues at a meeting. And if the head of the family is cornered now, it will negatively affect his reputation. Elgina said that the reputation of the head of the family is nothing more than a choice of a companion, and she is convinced that this couple is not that serious. Mr. Relvond reminded that the girl's pregnancy has not yet been confirmed. The woman said that was why they needed to find out everything right now. But Ertain's father said that by discussing everything here, they would only complicate the situation, and in private, they could discuss it as much as they wanted. Kona thought about it. She had played the commoner orphan diligently, but she wondered if the head of the family should worry about her reputation. She had no selfish goals, she could say that for sure. Ertain agreed with his father. This was definitely not the right place for such a conversation. Miss Elgina, on the other hand, did not understand why they thought the discussion was inappropriate. The woman suggested bringing up the subject at the family gathering next month. Ertain didn't mind if it meant he would finally see her there again. At this time, Cornea gradually began to understand everything. She had made a mistake about Anela Velsita, thinking that she was Ertain's maternal aunt. Ertain could call only one person his aunt, his mother, also known as the former head of the dynasty, Eldias Velsita. She was the only daughter, but in her youth, Eldias had a sister from a small family. Her name was Elgina. Since the health of Ertain's mother began to deteriorate rapidly a few years ago, Elgina was appointed deputy head of the dynasty. But ever since Ertain became the interim head of the family, she has lived in a secluded house, never leaving. Ertain said that whether she agreed to it or not, Elgina had to accept that he had chosen this girl, and therefore his choice should be respected, especially since the woman had already retired from business. Elgina was impressed by the boy's boldness, so before she left, she told him that she would wait for Ertain in the office, hoping that he would find strong arguments to convince her and Eldias. Cornea was still surprised by Elgina's arrival. The girl was convinced that it was because she had changed the canon, hoping that nothing terrible would happen, and now she didn't even know what to do next. Ertain had to take his leave first, because Elgina was already waiting for him. Cornea said that she had to go too, so after thanking him, she and the boyfriend headed for the exit. In the hallway, the couple started talking. Ertain said that he felt bad about Cornea's mood, since he had invited her. The girl responded with a smile, joking that at least she had learned how to use a fork. The boyfriend left, and the heroine was about to return to their room and continue working on the plan when someone called out to her. It was the same woman, Anela, whom Cornea had mistaken for Ertain's aunt. She wanted to talk to the girl. The woman apologized for what had happened at the dinner. She asked if the girl was upset by the head's words, but she replied that she realized she was out of place there. Anela recalled the situation at the meeting and how things escalated when Velsita suddenly left, and she felt ashamed that she had not stood up for Cornea since she was an elder. If Cornea doesn't mind, Miss Anela would like to help her from now on. These words alone made the girl very happy, so of course she was all for it. It seems that the heroine has found someone she can trust. The woman said that if her niece were alive, she and Cornea would be the same age. That's why Anena asked for permission to call the girl her niece, and she would call her aunt. The heroine agreed, but said it was better to call her Kona. Now the main problem of the heroine was still Elgina. In the original, it was said that she was something like a puppet. But she is a representative of the former head of the duchy. Given that Ertain's mother's husband was Relvond, the choice of a representative was very revealing and bold. It can be equated to appointing an outsider as the head of the family, forgetting about your husband. Most likely, there was a big fuss at the time, but Elgina has been replacing the head for several years now. Apparently, it's because she is competent enough to handle all the problems and has a strong morale. When Elgina handed over her powers to Ertain, she lived on the fringes as a servant. But during this time, she made influential connections that could not be ignored. Kona could not allow the woman to stand in her way. Ertain returned late, and Kona didn't wait for him, so she fell asleep sitting up. He woke her up, asking why she was sleeping so uncomfortably. The girl said that she just couldn't wait for him. He was pleasantly surprised to learn that Cornea was waiting for him, and that if he had known that, he would have returned as soon as possible. Kona asked Ertain about Elgina, pretending to know nothing about her. The boy replied that she was not really his aunt, but she was closer than it might seem. The heroine accidentally called Ertain Sir, to which he replied that 2 days ago he had ordered her to call him simply Ertain. The girl said his name several times at the boy's request, and then, based on her experience as a reader, Kona expected a kiss. Ruining the moment, Cornea asked how the conversation with her aunt went, and Ertain said that they talked about her, which interested the girl. This made the boy think that she was waiting for him for a reason and for details. Upset, Ertain assumed that Cornea had guessed what kind of conversation would take place between him and Elgina, but according to him, it was not the kind of conversation that the girl was obviously expecting. As it turned out, this time Ertain's aunt decided not to oppose his relationship with the girl. The boy had to explain everything that was happening, because the girl most likely misunderstood everything at first. After listening to everything Ertain said, Elgina said that she would look after him for a while. Kona was convinced that Elgina would interfere with her plans, but it seems that everything went well. However, she was a little confused when the woman said that this time she would not do anything. But she breathed a sigh of relief anyway. Ertain took her sigh as sadness over the outcome of their conversation with his aunt. He didn't like the fact that Cornea always seemed to be looking for an opportunity to escape from him, but this was what helped prove to his aunt that her fears were unfounded. Kona asked Ertain to tell her what they had talked about with Aunt Elgina, and he replied that he could not say because it was a secret. Ertain, who usually makes trouble out of nothing, thought the conversation went well. Kona thought she should thank him for it. The boy was surprised, but she explained that she was grateful because he had probably recommended her well, even if his aunt had backed down. When thanking him, Kona called Ertain Sir again, and he corrected her, paying attention only to this address. The boy suggested that the horse needed time to absorb the information and that it was noticeable during dinner. Ertain also assured Coney that she needed training, because if others were constantly making comments about her lack of etiquette, it would be useless. So the training will start tomorrow, which the girl was not happy about. Cornea said she was not sure of her whereabouts in a month, so she didn't see any point in learning etiquette until then, because there was a chance she would leave. She was waiting for the guy to start resisting. Ertain assured me that this was logical, although the training would not really last a day or even two. There are events that he would like to attend with Kona, and the educational process can take up to 3 weeks. The guy was quite serious, and it seemed to scare Kona a bit, especially his future plans. Ertain said he had interviewed the thug who had broken into Kona's house the other day. He found out that the girl pays 2 gold to the head of the street in exchange for protection. But this month, she hasn't paid, and if she returns, her debt will be 4 gold. In the world of the time trap, 1 gold is approximately 200,000 won. Ertain offered to take care of her payments if she agreed to learn etiquette, because Kona has no way to earn money while living in the manor. Velsit's family is one of the richest families in the empire, so the girl was impressed that if she kept a man for a month, he would pay only 4 gold pieces to pay off the debt. In 3 weeks, Velsita's family is organizing an outdoor reception with many other families, and if Kona does well at the event while learning etiquette, Ertain will fulfill her every wish. The girl asked if she could ask Ertain to let her out of the castle, to which he replied that he would not do that. Then she asked if he could make her the head of the Velsita family, but he thought that was not what she really wanted either. Ertain said that a request is a wish that another person can fulfill, so he asked Corny to wish for something that he could fulfill. The guy assured her that she could ask for money enough for a mansion in the city center, or jewelry or rare treasures, even a temporary status as a lower-level aristocrat, and he would let her know if it was within his means. Given how large the Welsit family is, this does not seem impossible. It wasn't even a question of money. It would have been very nice for Kona to have such a lucky card from Ertain. Cornea was curious about how her work would be evaluated and what exactly would be considered a victory. Ertain explained, Kona must use cutlery flawlessly and not leave the reception until it is over. If she stays there for up to 10 hours without making a single mistake, she can be considered to have fulfilled the task. If the girl doesn't make a mistake, it will be a failure. No one will think of offending her, and Brina's experience has taught them an important lesson. If something like this happens, Ertain will immediately recognize that she has done well. So, she agreed. After agreeing, the guy advised Kona to go to bed, and he had to finish his work. Kona assumed that Ertain wouldn't go to bed because she was taking his bed, and he asked what she would do even if she did. The girl said she could leave, but Ertain didn't mean it. He wondered if Cornea didn't want him to lie down next to her. This made her embarrassed. In general, Cornea didn't mind, but she would have liked to avoid touching. Ernest was hoping for a slightly different answer, so he just went back to work. The next morning, when Cornea woke up, she didn't see Ertine at her workplace, which was strange. When she turned around, she was shocked to see Ertine sleeping next to her. Her feeling of sleepiness was gone. Since she had been here, it seemed to be the first time he had slept next to her. She wanted to touch him. Ertine woke up too. He asked if he could touch her, because Kona had said that she wanted to avoid touching. Kona said he didn't have to ask if he just wanted to touch her cheek. The boy was happy. Ertine asked if the girl would mind a kiss, and she didn't. He didn't want to touch her without permission, but he wanted Kona to know that the kiss would be just as long. The author was wrong, according to Cornea. Ertine was not only unsurpassed in bed, it was strange that no one mentioned that he was a great kisser, too. Ertine left, leaving Cornea alone. It was an incredibly long kiss that will obviously remain in her memory. We had to think about what to do next. The most important change in the plot, aka the incident, should take place a week before the test results are announced. The day after the incident, Kona will bleed, and it will turn out that she is not pregnant. She will ask Ertine to let her go, because she is not carrying his child under her heart. Ertine replies that he cannot and asks Kona to stay with him. She will not understand why Duke Velsita clings to someone like her. Ertine makes it clear that Cornea is the first girl he ever wanted to kiss, and he wants her to be the last. In the next episode, according to the heroine, the thieves who staged the incident will try to expel Cornea. And if the heroine has the promised request to Ertine, she will be able to use it at that moment. From today, the heroine begins her etiquette training. This was reminded by Ertine, who was already waiting for the girl to start. The guy offered to eat together, and he would teach her the rules of behavior. The heroes were brought a dish to train on. For the 6th time, the girl started the same dish over and over again, making mistakes. It seemed to her that this was an omen of her failure. Kona ate 11 servings of a small dish called amuse-bouche and could not even look at other dishes. It is the first day, and the sensations are more painful. Ertine expressed hope that tomorrow they will be able to get to the main course. Kona asked if it was scary that Mr. Ertine would finish his meal, because he hadn't eaten anything else besides the demonstrative piece. She called him Mr. again, and it began to irritate him. Cornea couldn't understand why she still called Ertine Mr., because in her head she just said his name. It seemed to be because of the habits that remained in her memories. Ertine was sure that it would not be easy to re-educate the girl, so from now on, whenever she made a mistake, he would kiss her. This was very confusing for the girl. The guy, of course, expressed his understanding that Kona might not want to do this because she might think that his actions were not fair. So he said that he would kiss her himself. Cornea asked if Ertine would do it if she was against it, and he replied that it would depend on her behavior. In the meantime, he would have to remind her of the right decision. He should be called simply Ertine. Kona said she wasn't really scared. For Ertine, this meant that there was no escaping their arrangement. No matter what, he would kiss her until she called his name, hoping that she would want more. Already lying in bed, the girl was daydreaming. For her, being able to kiss her lover is the best punishment. After that, she provoked him to kiss her 4 more times. Kona wished that tomorrow would come soon. The next day, it all started again. Remarks, instructions, comments. This time, Cornea had already eaten 8 plates of the same dish. Ertine was only getting harsher, criticizing even her chewing speed. It was already the 4th day, and the girl felt like a cattle eating without restraint. Kona was learning much more slowly than Ertine expected. He thought that by now she would have learned everything she needed to know. Kona thought that there was just something wrong with the guy's methodology. As she lay in bed, Kona convinced herself that before she learned etiquette, she would stop distinguishing between flavors and her insides would give up altogether. She was overwhelmed by a bad feeling that tomorrow she would have to eat a dozen plates of food, too. The girl fell asleep. In her dream, she saw the green elf again. He was happy to see her again, asking her how her week in this world had been. Cornea grabbed him by the ears and began to complain, begging him to save her and accusing Ertine of abusing her. And then the girl realized that he had come for a reason. She asked him about it, and the elf replied that it was true, and he was here to give her a gift, because it was the weekly day of exchange between dimensions. The elf said that this week's recommended memory was Cornea's personal relationships. The heroine interrupted him and asked if Cornea had any memories of etiquette, to which he replied that Cornea was a simple girl who was abandoned at birth. The girl assured me that she didn't need anything but knowledge of etiquette. She wouldn't be able to squeeze in a dozen plates of the same food tomorrow either. The elf assured her that Kona could not choose her gifts, but she didn't need anything but etiquette. She was suffering, and her precious time with her lover had turned into torture. But if we talk about memories, she realized that she had to follow certain instructions. From the beginning, the elf didn't mean anything by it, but he could do the girl a special favor. He assured her that such favors were not often granted, and since there was nothing like this on the list of gifts, the price would be high. Kona was grateful, assuring him that she would always remember the kindness of this holy creature. The elf interrupted her, telling her to call him Mint Chocolate, and that from now on, she would address him as such. It was something familiar. A week has passed in a dream since the start of school. The introduction to dinner etiquette, which had ceased to be torture for Kona, was over. Mint Chocolate was proud of her. The next morning, during Ertain's lesson, the girl showed excellent results on the first try. He was amazed, because yesterday she was far from perfect, but he praised her for her efforts. At first, Ertain had the impression that Kona's perception was slow, but her skills were gradually improving. He had the impression that she could improve her skills rapidly, but she knew it was because of the gift she had received. The boy said that Kona's dining etiquette was perfect, so they could graduate the day after tomorrow. The girl said that Ertain had been working hard all these days, and he assured her that she had done her part. Kona thought she would feel more comfortable after learning the etiquette, but massages, taking measurements, fitting for clothes, learning to walk in heels, and so on, turned the time before the meeting into a nightmare. The day of the garden party came. Kona prepared and did everything in her power to make the event a success. Etiquette met the girl in the lobby, and he looked gorgeous. A cropped jacket that ended at the waist looked better than a long one. It seemed that any clothes suited this man. Ertain said the same thing about Kona's dress. The only thing that upset Ertain about Kona's character was that he was more frank than he expected. But he assured her that she had nothing to worry about. Ertain told Cornea not to worry and just think that this event was an opportunity to get to know his family members better. The girl was perfectly prepared. At the beginning, a man approached the couple to say hello. He asked Ertain to introduce his companion. When he heard her name, he said that he had already heard about her and was pleased to meet her. Mr. Relvond overheard the conversation and congratulated Cornea and assured her that he was glad to see her as Ertain's companion. The man asked why they had arrived earlier than scheduled, and Ertain explained that he wanted to give Cornea time to meet their family. Relvond agreed that it was a good idea because they could become a family, so the more friends she made, the better. Then he asked Kona to let Ertain go with him, because he needed to talk to him about something. Ertain felt uncomfortable leaving the girl, but she assured him that everything was fine and he did not have to worry. He assured her that he would come back to her immediately after the conversation. Immediately after Ertain left, a stranger approached the girl. She introduced herself as Eileen Velsita and was very pleased to meet her, because until then she had only heard of Cornea. The heroine thanked her new friend for being the first to approach her, as she was a little scared. Then Eileen offered to join their company, as they were the same age, and it would be convenient for them to communicate. It was very nice of her. Cornea realized how rash this decision was almost immediately. Eileen decided to ask about the details of the girl's life. Eileen's friend Marinelle was the first to start the conversation, saying that she was impressed by the fact that Kona lived freely and asking if that was why she was a commoner or if it was just her personality. The next questions were about Ertain and how she was able to get to know him so well, since he is known for his unapproachability. Marinelle began to almost openly ridicule Mr. Ertain's relationship with a commoner. These questions confused and offended Cornea. Marinelle pretended that she had accidentally called Kona a commoner and asked her not to be upset about it. Cornea decided to tell the story of how she met Ertine and how they met during a masquerade ball. Eileen thought it was very romantic, but her friend did not. The girl assured her that she had heard about the atmosphere of general enjoyment at such events and that it was a cause of promiscuity. This again put Kona in an awkward position, but the interlocutor continued. She said there was a lady whose marriage ended in divorce because of an incident at a ball. She had come to the party with her fiancé, but spent the night with another man who turned out to be the fiancé's younger brother. A friend of Eileen's assured her that it was a love potion that was mixed into the drink. Everyone was interested in what kind of drug it was that had such an effect on people. The girls decided that if Cornea was at such an event, she should know. They did not tactfully ask whether she and Ertine had been drinking a love potion that had been mixed with alcohol. Cornea assured her that it was the first time she had ever been to a masquerade ball, which led Eileen to assume that she probably didn't remember anything at all. Her friend asked if Kona had drunk alcohol before meeting Ertine and how she felt. The blonde girl tried to find out whether Mr. Ertine himself was intoxicated on the day he met Kona and whether this meant that he had drunk her drink. Cornea confirmed that this was the case. The attacker thought it was strange that the head of the family drank Cornea's drink because it was not new, and perhaps it was the girl who offered him a drink. The blonde said that when she learned that such a commoner had attended the masquerade, she wondered if Cornea had gone to the masquerade ball for a specific purpose. Kona asked her what she meant. Eileen's friend was sure that the main purpose of attending parties where only aristocrats gathered was to find the right person and start a relationship with them. Kona was silent. Marinelle continued her speech, assuring that she would not be surprised if the circumstances of the meeting between Ertine and Kona were revealed, and that most of those present at today's event had probably already guessed everything. She accused Kona that her actions were not really an accident because a commoner does not have many options for living. Marinelle is sure that the right decision is to raise her status at the expense of her husband, in which case Kona's goal is to successfully conceive a child. But she said that Velsit's family has long been plagued by infertility, so she's not sure if Kona will succeed. Marinelle stopped April, who looked very scared. Behind them, a man's voice said that Cornelia had won the bet. It was Ertine who said that it was his fault that Kona was in such an unpleasant situation again. There was silence, and you could feel everyone around you tense up. Marinelle jumped up from her seat and began to greet Mr. Ertine, introducing herself as a member of the Flanders family. However, the man walked around the table and extended his hand to Cornea, ignoring Marinelle's gesture. The girl who had insulted Cornea began to make excuses, assuring him that there had been a mistake, and it was just a misunderstanding. Ertine decided to clear things up right then and there. Ertine said that the night he and Kona spent together was initiated by him, and that the fact that she is now in their possession is also his responsibility. By insulting Cornea in this way, they are insulting his will and his decisions. Ertine turned to Cornea. The girl called him Sir again, so he kissed her in front of everyone without breaking his rules. With regard to Marinelle, Ertine decided that from now on she would not be allowed to visit the Palace of Welsita, and later, with the Flanders family, they would raise the issue of depriving her of her aristocratic status. Marinelle fell to her knees, blood flowing from her mouth. This was the release of the power of the spirit, Ertine's power, bringing him closer to perfection. Ertine said that he and Kona would return to the castle, and he would leave it to his father to see the guests off. The mission of winning the garden party was accomplished, so it was time for Kona to rethink everything that had happened and was still happening. Kona remembered the green elf. It was he who had warned her about Marinelle and asked her to cool her temper. The reason why Kona mentioned the masquerade ball was because she needed to give an excuse to attack. It was a ploy to win the victory over the abuser. She could hardly contain her smile. Ertine considered himself guilty. He put pressure on everyone at the family gathering and did not think that anyone would oppose him. Ertine asked if Cornea would like something right now. He was not referring to the request he owed her, but rather just wanted to know what she wanted at that moment. Kona realized that there was no need to use her request now, and therefore she could dispose of Marinelle's fate as she saw fit. Even though the girl had suffered for the sake of the plan, the real Kona would have been really offended. So Cornea told Ertine what she wanted. He asked her if it was really what she wanted, and she confidently answered yes. So the guy was obliged to fulfill her request. Despite this, the guy made it clear that if those who insulted the girl continued to build their insidious plans without thinking about anything, he would be forced to deal with them on his own. On the way to Kona's room, her aunt called out to her. As it turned out, she already knew what had happened in the garden, so she decided to ask how she was feeling. Kona said that everything was fine and that it was even expected. According to Marinelle, she is just a commoner with nothing, so it is not surprising that people perceive her that way. Anela's aunt said that Cornea will face many more disappointments. However, they say that the head of the family has taken care of her and punished all her offenders, so with such protection, the girl does not have to worry about anything. The woman told Coney not to worry because she could be carrying a child of the Velsita family under her heart. The girl thanked her for her concern. Anaila mentioned that she had something for Cornea. It was a bath foam from Largo's workshop. She advised her to use it while taking a bath because the girl was obviously tired today, both mentally and physically. After hugging her, the woman reminded her that in a few days it would be time to take a pregnancy test, and she was sure that the result would be positive, so she wished Kona strength and patience. In her room, Cornea continued to study magic and improve her knowledge. Even though she had gained the real Kona's memories of magic, she was still worried about whether she would have the strength to do more than create a magic circle. Soon the girl will receive a book of magic recipes from Kona's house. Perhaps this will interest her more than learning magic symbols. She is very tired. Cornea remembered the gift from Anaila and decided it was time to take a bath. The foam had a wonderful lemon scent that was refreshing and helped her feel better. The heroine asked the maids how long she had been taking a bath, and they told her that only 20 minutes had passed. But she felt dizzy and decided to finish. Cornea grabbed her stomach, and one of the maids asked how she was feeling. She replied that she had a stomachache. They offered to call a doctor, but she refused and assured them that she just needed to sleep. After a while, the maid came back into the room. She didn't see Cornea in bed, and it worried her a lot. She heard the girl's faint voice from the restroom, and she was sitting on the floor, clutching her head in pain. A little later, when she was already in bed, an excited Ertain came into the room. He was told that the girl was bleeding, but Kona was sure that it was a normal menstruation. Ertain assured me that I should call a doctor and he would decide for me whether it was a normal period. Kona stopped him, saying that it didn't matter if it was a normal period or not, because the truth was that she was not pregnant and it was obvious. Ertain realized what Kona was getting at, so he said that he would never let her go, that he simply could not do it. The guy changed his face and abruptly got up to leave, saying that Kona should follow the doctor's instructions. He also said that he would probably not be able to visit her in the coming days because of work. Coney thought this behavior was strange. She was sure that Ertain wanted to send her away. The girl asked not to call a doctor and that she would not ask to be released, even saying that she was pretending to be sick. In the original story, a week before the results were announced, the villain mixed abortifacient into the bath foam and Kona started bleeding. Fortunately, Kona was not pregnant at the time, so it did not happen that she lost the baby. As it turned out, sometime before the main events of today, the protagonist, knowing about this reason, decided to imitate the symptoms of the disease on her own. Cornea, who could not use magic properly, developed some small spells. She asked Manchesta, the maid, to bring her some medicine to complete her preparations. 1 drop of blood was enough to do the job. Kona's spell and the high-quality ingredients Manchester had prepared were enough to mimic the symptoms of the disease. Although Ertain insisted that the girl be examined by a doctor, the doctor simply prescribed medication and left, saying that she needed to be followed up. It was fortunate that it was a male doctor who could not conduct a more detailed examination. So far, everything has gone according to plan. Later, at a pregnancy meeting, Ertain will tell Kona's haters that she is letting her go because of a miscarriage. However, the relationship will continue and the possibility of pregnancy will remain. I had to tell it like that. However, after that, Cornea's already chilly relationship with Velsit's family will become even worse. So the girl is sure that she will have to fend for herself without Ertain's help whenever possible. Kona is sure that she will have a child someday, but she is not ready yet. She would like to remain a newlywed for longer. She didn't want all the inconveniences associated with pregnancy, and she was scared to give birth. One of the most compelling reasons, however, is Rebecca Milax, Ertain's childhood friend to whom he was once engaged. She is the most desirable bride in the country, but in reality, she will do anything to get Ertain back. In the original story, Kona, who grew up in an orphanage, really wanted a child who would become her family. That's why she decided not to return home and to do everything she could to give the child only the best. Unfortunately, she lost her baby on the 5th month of pregnancy. That is why Kona and Ertain broke up. Even though the heroine could have prevented the events of the original, the problem was that she didn't know what other tricks her haters might use later. She needed to review what cards she was holding before the meeting started. A visitor came to Cornea's room. It was time to take a pregnancy test. The girl was surprised that a whole month had passed since her last time with Ertain. During the test itself, Kona mentally begged the author not to make her pregnant. She even resorted to magic to fake bleeding, so she thought there would be more problems if it turned out she was pregnant. The sorcerer completed the procedure and assured them that there was already a result. Ertain and Kona were both tense and waiting for the answer. Ertain asked the sorcerer to go with him to find out the result. This angered the girl a bit because she was also curious, and it was a matter of her pregnancy. After talking, Ertain returned and said that the sorcerer could not feel the energy in her womb. It turned out that Kona really knew this would happen, so she breathed a sigh of relief. However, unlike the heroine, it seemed that Ertain was very upset. He said that Kona should stay in bed until she got better and left. The girl begged him not to leave and to talk to her, but the guy said he had things to do. This angered Cornea, who wanted to stay in Wellsida Castle herself. The girl was already going crazy because she could not understand Ertain's expression lately. It seemed to her that all this was still a misunderstanding. In a fit of anger, the girl assured him that every time Ertain pissed her off, she would pretend to want to leave. Cornea went to rest. As she drifted off to sleep, she saw a green elf greeting her and being happy to see her again. She was not happy to see him lying under the covers with her, and not, as she thought, Ertain. The girl addressed the creature by name, which surprised him, because he had previously thought of her as rude and uneducated. Finally, he asked her if she was ready for today's leadership. Kona was angry and rubbing her hands together. Mint Chocolate asked her what was wrong with her, and she told him to start explaining. First of all, he decided to talk about preferences. A frame appeared in front of the girl's face with the words "Mission Calculation Table" written on it. The green elf assured her that in order to get certain benefits, she had to pay a price, that is, complete missions. Mint Chocolate explained that missions can be divided into regular missions, in which credits are given after the goal is achieved, and special missions, in which additional credits are given even after the goal is achieved. At the moment, according to the elf, Cornea has 85 points that she can exchange. The list also included a gift for an assistant item worth 1 point. It seemed useless to the girl, which touched the eared elf. The elf decided to start with the 3rd point, randomly changing the difficulty of the task. It was something that the girl had rejected last time, that is, Cornea's memories of the relationship. The task was to go to Kona's house and take the necessary things. In general, the girl was going to visit Kona's house anyway, but she was not sure whether the memories of the relationship made sense. The heroine already had general ideas about them from reading novels. The girl approached Mint Chocolate, saying that she wanted to exchange her points for special privileges. He assured her that it was a good choice, and now she should pull the ball out of the box, which she did well. Kona pulled out a special bonus ticket that will allow her to receive bonuses whenever she wants. With the newly chosen privilege, the girl can enter the world of dreams, even if it is not a day of privileges. The elf told the girl that her special bonus ticket would now be engraved on her wrist. She would just have to touch the spot and think about what she wanted to do with the bonus. Others will not be able to see the mark. As a result, Kona never received any bonuses that would have helped her immediately. Even so, there are some advantages. Mint Chocolate took the task that Kona had previously completed for inspection, and they said goodbye. Ertain came into the room. The girl was waiting for him with excitement. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. The guy said that an urgent meeting was scheduled for tomorrow. Ertain said with a sense of guilt that he did not know that all this was happening behind his back. Kona suggested that she should also be at the meeting, to which he replied in the affirmative, but assured her that she had nothing to worry about because he would take care of everything. But on the other hand, he'd really rather stay out of it. The guy wondered why Cornea wanted to leave so badly, assuming that maybe she was uncomfortable here because it was different from where she had lived before, or she was just tired of the constant insults. Or maybe she doesn't like him. Mentally, the girl was screaming, saying how could she not like him if he could even conquer Kona in the original, but she was grateful to the author and her parents who created him like that. However, what she said out loud was quite different. She asked if he would let her go if she answered yes to his question. Ertain's face showed pain and despair. It was Kona's trick. She wanted to show him what it was like to be offended. Ertain was sure that the girl hated him, but Kona said she didn't. She just wanted to know if her boyfriend would let her go. The latter said that they would find out the answer to this question tomorrow at the meeting. The day of the meeting came. Ertain held out his hand to Coney and they walked into the hall. The girl had 20 years of experience, so it was time to test her acting. It was strange that all those present at the meeting planned their affairs behind Ertain's back and ultimately feared that he would come to this meeting. Relvond Velsita started the meeting. First of all, he gave the reason. He began to talk about how it had been announced at the last meeting that Kona might be pregnant with Velsita's heir, and a marriage license had been requested for the same reason. The man continued, saying that there was evidence that Cornea was not pregnant, so they decided to postpone the decision until the results of the examination. They needed to do the test again, which is why they had set aside the space for this meeting. Ertain's voice was heard saying that after the pregnancy test, it would be appropriate to find a new place to gather. The audience, represented by other members of the family, shouted their agreement, saying that in the end, feelings would not overshadow the boy's wisdom. The part that worried Ertain the most was the part that said that they had received evidence that Kona was not pregnant. He was very interested in how they could have gotten this information. Ertain turned out to be more far-sighted than Kona expected. The boy ordered the sorcerer and the maids to keep quiet, and what is happening now means that there was a conspiracy, and they managed to get information, or they were sure that the child was dead. One of those present, named Lord Freldy, claimed that they had overheard the maids talking while doing laundry. Ertain said that an investigation would be conducted, and according to the Lord, all those responsible would be punished and dismissed. The guy suggested that we return to the topic of the meeting and asked what the other council members thought. Someone started to say that since Kona was not pregnant, they would be happy to accept her as a hostess. Ertain's father assured him that his Aunt Elgina also supports such statements. In his opinion, she is quite perceptive, so Ertain should not be allowed in Cornea's house. Others in the room raised a ruckus, saying that neither Kona's background nor her accomplishments were worthy of their family. In their opinion, it was necessary to return everything to the way it was and abandon the old plan. Then they put another proposal to the vote. Ertain stood up, saying that he had heard enough. Now he wanted to express his point of view on the situation. He assured them that the fact that Kona was not pregnant was not a problem, because there was nothing to stop them from taking care of the matter today. Everyone was shocked by this statement, especially Cornea, who was directly affected by it. Ertain turned to the girl and told her that she needed to have a good dinner tonight, because the next night would be very long. The guy led Kona out of the meeting room and they walked away. When they stopped, Ertain said that all this was the answer to her question. He was not going to let her go. She thought it was entirely her fault because she had overlooked the change in Ertain's behavior. She knew he was crazy, but she didn't think he was that crazy. Nevertheless, it was her unstoppable way forward. It seemed to Ertain that she did not take what he had said at the meeting seriously. So he asked her if it was time for them to really address the issue of the child. Cornea gave him an ambiguous yes, so he assured her that she knew what was coming next. They kissed in the corridor, and Ertain asked if she wanted him to do it again or if they would go straight to bed. He picked her up and carried her into the room. This pressure scared Cornea a little, so she asked him to take his time. Ertain looked at her with a hard look, recalling his phrase about the girl eating well, but he had to take it back. There was no time for that. Ertain laid the girl on the bed and asked her to relax, because it might be much more pleasant for her than the first time. Kona stopped Ertain saying that they didn't have to do it for real. It was no secret why they were in the same room together and no one could hear them. That's why they didn't have to do it. Ertain asked why he should refuse and why he should pretend. If someone finds out that they are not in a relationship, there will be big problems. Instead, he would like to continue the relationship. But that's not all. He was crazy about the girl. In fact, Kona also wanted Ertain, but the problem was that if she got pregnant now, there was no telling what the bad guys might do. Cornea reminded Ertain that she had one request that he had promised to fulfill. She asked him to pretend that everything had happened between them. The guy agreed, but asked if the girl thought it was stupid that he was going to leave. Ertain proposed a bet. He would try to convince the girl and she would try to hold out. In the morning, they were both tired. Kona believed that if not for the risk of pregnancy, she and Ertain would have stayed up all night. By morning, Kona's skin was rubbing against the thin fabric of her clothes, and she was tired of not being able to get rid of it. Ertain said that they would not be able to see each other in the near future because he needed to sort out the situation. Kona understood because he had almost lost his status as the head of the family because of one incident. He told her all this so that she wouldn't imagine anything unnecessary. Also, she shouldn't try to run away from him. He didn't know why she was avoiding a relationship with him, but if she was planning to leave this place, she should give up now. As he left, he ordered Coney not to leave his room and not to receive guests. He would give instructions to the staff to do so. Cornea was convinced that the decision to use deception was the best one. She was happy that such a handsome man was even more crazy about her because he was afraid she would run away. Later, while taking a hot bath, Cornea thought about how there had been quite a few unexpected twists and turns lately, but she was sure they had handled them well. Now she could organize her thoughts a bit. In the original, about a month after the test, it becomes known that Cornea is pregnant, but her family is not very supportive. Realizing this, Ertain makes a decision. He proposes marriage to the girl, and they secretly sign a marriage contract. She was pregnant and married, so now they could live happily ever after. Everything would have been fine, but Ertain told this secret to Rebecca, whom he considered his close friend, and made a fatal mistake. Unwilling to give in, Rebecca came up with a plan to drive a wedge between the couple. This is exactly what happened in the original story. While the girl tries to avoid intimacy with Ertain in order not to get pregnant, the plot of the original is completely twisted. There are too many variables. While the girl was thinking, the maids collected evidence of her menstruation. As she continued to think about how to minimize these gigantic variables, she came across the book, The Magic Circle Formula. It was just what she needed. Kona talked to the maid. The latter said that she had heard about the meeting and that everything had ended well, that Mr. Ertain had admitted that she and Kona had made a mistake and that they would not break the council's rules in the future. Kona asked the maid to ask if she could ask Ertain to talk to her, and the latter replied that she would ask as soon as she saw the gentleman. In the heroine's opinion, everything was going well. Now she has to ask Ertain to let her go home for a while so that she can take the big magic book of spells from the real Kona. The real Kona, who lived in Belidium, where prostitution was rampant, invented several of her spells to sell. The original didn't give any details about the spells, but there is a high probability that they are some kind of contraception. There was one problem. I had to go to the city to pick up the book, but there is a man possessed by a man who thinks that Kona will run away from him at any opportunity. So the question is whether he will let her go. Even though it was a difficult task, Kona has to do it. Regardless of whether she succeeds in retrieving the book, she has to go and she already has a rough plan of action. The mission must be accomplished. In the evening, when Kona was sleeping, Ertain came into the room. He apologized for waking her up and told her that he had only stopped by for a minute because they were supposed to meet that evening. And Kona remembered that the maid had told her about it. When the guy was already there, Cornea decided not to delay, but to ask him about going home. She said that it was important for her to go there on her own and take everything she needed so that nothing would fall into the wrong hands. The guy didn't want to let the girl go, but she assured him that she wouldn't run away and would do anything he asked if he let her go. Ertain stood there for a moment. Kona continued to persuade him, saying that she was ready for marriage, or even something more if he agreed. Ertain said he would keep his word and agree. The girl said once again that she would not run away from him. The guy replied that in another situation he would be happy to, but now it would be better if she didn't. Otherwise, he might have to put shackles on her. Ertain mentioned that he hadn't been very polite last night and said he would talk to the Minchester and then they would work out the details. He left, and Kona thanked him once again for listening to her request. The next day, the girl was already sitting in a carriage on the way to Belidium. The purpose of this trip is to pick up Kona's spell book, find a magical artifact to resolve the current situation, and complete the task. Even though Kona said she would return as soon as she got everything she needed, she wanted to have fun. She stayed in her room for a month. It's one thing to be obsessed with and cared for, but it doesn't make it any more fun. Ertain himself gave the girl a large sum of money. It was a gift to which he attached a tracking artifact and ordered her to wear it. Kona believed that this was his way of giving her consent and not for her to have fun. Kona asked Lord Miller, who was accompanying her, if he would mind looking around a bit on the way back. He did not mind, but assured her that Mr. Ertain had told him to return by evening. They arrived at their destination, and Kona showed them where her house was, while thinking about how old it was and how she could have lived there. Lord Miller offered to go inside, but Kona assured him that she only needed to pick up a few books and could manage on her own, so he shouldn't worry. Besides, she was wearing a magical artifact. Once inside, the girl was surprised by the open door and a pile of shoe marks on the floor. This was not in the original story. Cornea found the book. However, she was surprised that in the original, the real Kona tied the edge of the book with her hair and used magic to seal it. But now there was no hair. This could mean that the book had been opened. While she was thinking, she heard footsteps behind her, and an unknown man grabbed her. He ordered her to be quiet or he would break her neck. It turned out to be the same man who had once broken into Kona's house, Jeffrey. The man accused the girl that he was starving because of Ertain, that his bones had not fused properly, and that he was now suffering from pain every day. He kept thinking about how he could punish the girl for ruining his life. Fortunately for him, he was not the only one thinking about it. Many people wanted to take revenge on her. Jeffrey said he knew how much fun she was having with Ertain, offering to touch up Coney's beauty as he had been asked to, so that she wouldn't even be recognized, or to have fun with her, imagining Ertain's face when he found out. The crazy man pinned Cornea to the floor so tightly that she couldn't move. The girl decided to focus on her magical powers to throw the bastard off her. An unknown force threw the man off the girl. It was not Kona. The unknown person asked if she was okay. This situation with Jeffrey and the rescue really shocked the girl. The unidentified man said that the girl had a cut on her face, but it was not deep, so it should heal soon. The girl was very interested in where her rescuer came from. Jeffrey stood up from his seat, his eyes at first showing fierce rage, but the next moment his expression changed. He seemed to recognize Kona's savior. Jeffrey fell to the floor, asking what this man was doing here. He was terrified, begging for forgiveness and for his life. The unidentified man said that he talked too much and cast a spell of mute on him, which Kona recognized. The man turned out to be a sorcerer. The girl thanked the savior and asked him in surprise about the spell he had used to subdue the evil one. The man jokingly asked if the girl was worried about the offender. Kona replied that on the contrary, she would like to take revenge on the evil one, and to do so, she needed him to be still. The sorcerer assured her that it would not be so difficult. The girl showed what she was capable of. Her rescuer was amazed. She was more bloodthirsty than he expected. Kona assured him that she would have liked to do more, but she was still grateful that she was alive thanks to the sorcerer. Cornea asked what her rescuer's name was. The man thought about it and replied that she could just call him Jay. There was a knock at the door. It was Lord Miller, who was worried about the girl. Kona said that she was fine and that the magic lock on the door had worked. After making sure the girl had a companion to take care of her, Jay said he had to go. In the end, Kona wanted to thank the man somehow, but he said there was no need and he was happy to help her. Finally, Jay told Kona to be careful on her way back. Calling her Miss Magician, he teleported away. An excited Lord Miller burst into the house. He apologized to the girl because he was supposed to accompany and protect her. The man saw that Kona was injured, but she assured him that everything was fine. The Lord offered to return as soon as possible. Cornelia couldn't help but think that the man who called himself Jay was overly suspicious. It seemed strange to her that he had appeared at the exact moment she needed him. She also wondered how he knew she was a magician.